Furthermore, the protagonist reasoned that having the city lord protect his family would allow him to venture out and gain experience with a peaceful mind. Backed by Grandmaster Qin, Wu Lingxian, and Principal Li Chengshan, he had no reason to fear even if the city lord tried to push him too hard in the future. After weighing his options, he promptly shook hands with the city lord and smiled, expressing his heartfelt gratitude for such profound kindness. He added that he genuinely required the city lord's assistance. Delighted by this response, the city lord immediately told the protagonist to speak his mind directly regarding any requests he might have. Without any hesitation, the protagonist mentioned that his aunt suffered from a rare illness, and asked if they could help secure treatment for her. Upon hearing this, his uncle and aunt smiled with immense relief, calling out the protagonist's name with tears in their eyes. The city lord instantly instructed his subordinate to hand the matter over to Director Shang, ordering them to ensure that the finest medical resources were utilized. The subordinate nodded in agreement right away. Turning his attention back to the protagonist, the city lord asked with a smile what else he desired. He encouraged him not to be shy, noting that he preferred straightforward youths above all else. The protagonist bashfully replied that he would also like a reliable weapon. Hearing this, the city lord smiled faintly and immediately invited the protagonist to follow him to the armory so he could choose whatever he wanted. The protagonist politely thanked the city lord on the spot. In his mind, however, the city lord was only afraid that the youth would not ask for anything. The more favors he requested, the more closely tied he would become to the Wang family. Before following after him, the protagonist quickly told his uncle and aunt to wait there for a moment. Meanwhile, the city lord ordered his son, Wang Tiantuo, to take charge of the banquet for the time being, promising that he would return shortly. Wang Tiantuo immediately went to attend to the protagonist's uncle and aunt. Concurrently, the onlookers witnessing everything could not help but think that the protagonist's family had truly struck an incredible stroke of good fortune. The scene then shifted to the armory inside the city lord manor. As soon as the two entered, the city lord explained that the C-rank and B-rank alloy weapons were located in the outer sections, while the A-rank weapons were housed in the innermost area. Before the protagonist could make a choice, the city lord inquired about his attribute, suggesting that he proceed directly to the A-rank section to make his selection easier. The protagonist smiled to himself, reflecting on how an A-rank alloy weapon was worth hundreds of millions. It was clear to him that the city lord was being remarkably generous just to win his favor. He slowly approached the city lord and asked with a smile if they happened to have a multi-attribute alloy weapon. The city lord was taken aback and instantly questioned why he needed such a weapon, wondering aloud if the protagonist was a multi-attribute martial artist. The protagonist did not hold back. He immediately revealed his 7 attributes to the city lord, explaining that he practiced multiple elements. He added that Grandmaster Qin placed great trust in him and had advised him to choose a multi-attribute weapon if possible. The city lord stood completely frozen in astonishment at what he was witnessing, his voice stammering as he stared at the 7 attributes displayed right before his eyes. The protagonist smiled slightly at the city lord's reaction. He believed that since he had already decided to accept the city lord's advances, it was best to show just how exceptional his talent truly was. The more monstrous his potential appeared, the more the city lord would value him. The city lord remained in disbelief as the reality sank in that the protagonist was actually cultivating 7 distinct attributes. Yet, a question lingered in the city lord's mind, making him wonder how the protagonist's cultivation could possibly progress at such an incredibly rapid pace under those conditions. In his mind, he recalled the common knowledge that the more attributes a martial artist cultivated, the slower their progression became. With 7 distinct elements, the protagonist theoretically should not have even managed to reach Tier 2. He found it hard to believe that this young man was already a Tier 2 martial artist possessing 7 attributes. Beyond that, he was also a Tier 2 spirit master with a specialized physique that surpassed even the barbarian god body. It was entirely beyond his imagination that such a monstrous genius could originate right from their own star city. To him, it felt as though a legendary Zaiwei star had descended to the mortal realm. He could only sigh deeply and warmly address the protagonist as his fine nephew, though he added with a tinge of self-deprecation that he felt quite useless as an uncle. The protagonist was puzzled by the city lord's sudden change in demeanor and asked what had brought on this unexpected emotional shift. As they searched through the weapon racks, the city lord explained that multi-attribute alloy weapons were exceedingly rare. He noted that he only possessed a few dual-attribute weapons within this entire armory. When it came to 3 attribute weapons, he owned just a single piece. He then presented a B-rank dark gold black iron spearhead to the protagonist. Afterward, he offered to dismantle an A-rank alloy spear shaft for the protagonist to use alongside it as a temporary solution. The protagonist immediately expressed his gratitude to the City Lord, explaining that he could actually still utilize the shaft of his own Thunderfire spear. Privately, however, he felt that a 3-attribute spearhead was more than enough for his current needs. Even so, the City Lord shared that strange anomalies had recently surfaced near Star City, with reports indicating that dual-attribute and even multi-attribute ferocious beasts were roaming the wilderness. Consequently, he had already dispatched scouts to monitor the situation closely. The protagonist was startled by this information and promptly asked for clarification regarding these unusual occurrences. The City Lord explained that while the protagonist was away at the training camp, these anomalies had begun manifesting on a global scale. Not only were multi-attribute ferocious beasts emerging in those areas, but multi-attribute natural treasures were also coming into existence. An eyewitness had supposedly seen a lightning-attributed ferocious beast gain the ability to breathe scorching flames after coming into contact with a strange, mysterious object. The City Lord further noted that there were reports of a multi-attribute ferocious beast appearing at Stargazing Lake, right outside the borders of Star City. The protagonist, however, was unfamiliar with the location of Stargazing Lake. Seeing this, the City Lord warned him that the area was exceptionally hazardous. He advised the protagonist that once he entered Martial Dao University in the future, he would easily find proper multi-attribute weapons, so there was absolutely no need to risk his life at this moment. The protagonist politely thanked the City Lord for the valuable advice. Several hours later, a luxurious vehicle pulled up and parked right outside the protagonist's home, immediately drawing the attention of the neighborhood residents. The onlookers quickly recognized it as an official vehicle belonging to the Star City government. Everyone wondered aloud what such a vehicle could possibly be doing in their neighborhood. One onlooker smirked and pointed out their naivety, explaining that the license plate designated it as the personal, exclusive transport of the City Lord himself. Upon hearing that revelation, a few neighbors swore in disbelief, loudly wondering what business the City Lord had in their residential area. Meanwhile, Lin Nian's mother could not help but daydream, thinking that if she could just ride in a vehicle like that with Lin Nian even once, she could die happy. Her thoughts then turned bitter as she reflected that if the protagonist had simply surrendered his training camp slot to her son, Lin Nian would undoubtedly be facing a brilliant future right now. In her mind, she cursed the Su family, silently resolving to raise their rent and evict them from the property for good. Yet, her train of thought ground to a sudden halt the exact moment the vehicle door swung open. Everyone watched in utter astonishment as the protagonist's family stepped out of the vehicle. Only then did the reality sink in that the protagonist had indeed attended the prestigious training camp, and was now being personally escorted home in the City Lord's exclusive transport. To the onlookers, it seemed as though the Su family had truly been blessed with extraordinary fortune. Lin Nian's mother was furious, her mind racing as she tried to comprehend how any of this was even possible. The protagonist's uncle immediately walked over to their landlady, greeting her warmly as Sister Hong. He noted how coincidental it was to cross paths with her, mentioning that he had something rather important to share. He proudly announced that their nephew had secured the top spot at the training camp, and as a reward, the City Lord had gifted them a villa. They would be moving out the very next day. Sister Hong stood frozen, completely dumbfounded by the news. Without beating around the bush, the uncle explained that because of this sudden turn of events, they would no longer be renting the apartment. He then asked if she could refund the advance rent they had already paid. However, the protagonist's aunt smiled and chimed in, reconsidering her husband's request. She pointed out that since they were no longer strapped for cash, there was really no need to ask for a refund. Instead, she suggested they leave the extra money as a parting gift for Sister Hong. Sister Hong was left completely speechless. Meanwhile, the family headed straight inside their rented home, immediately debating whether they should bother bringing their old table, chairs, and other worn-out belongings to the new villa. The aunt playfully scolded her husband, telling him not to be so stingy. She reminded him that their nephew was a prominent figure now, and they shouldn't do anything to embarrass him. The protagonist chuckled at their banter, reassuring them that he wasn't worried about saving face at all, so long as the two of them were happy. A few hours later, as midnight approached, the protagonist made his way up to the rooftop once again. Standing beneath the night sky, he quietly reflected that this would likely be his final time cultivating in this familiar spot. Surprisingly, he felt a slight pang of reluctance to leave it behind. Checking his status window, he noted that after upgrading his spiritual power and factoring in the martial value accumulated from dominating the entire training camp, his total had skyrocketed to over 1,900 points. With such a massive surplus, he decided to channel his resources into raising his vitality until it surpassed 700, successfully breaking through to the Tier 2 middle stage. As the breakthrough took effect, his muscles surged with power, and a torrent of intense energy erupted from his entire body. Once his physical frame gradually settled back to its normal size, he pulled out his phone to research the global anomalies the City Lord had mentioned, specifically looking for information on Stargazing Lake. To his surprise, the moment his fingers gripped the device, a sharp crack webbed across the screen. He realized his body had not yet fully adapted to the raw, explosive strength of the Tier 2 middle stage. Thankfully, the phone wasn't completely crushed. Scrolling through the data on the anomalies, he discovered reports of an S-rank spirit herb emerging overseas, which had triggered a bloody, chaotic frenzy among countless martial artists desperate to claim it. Even grandmasters were starting to make their moves. Furthermore, another report detailed a fire-precious beast that had gained both thunder and earth attributes after coming into contact with a mysterious object. Strangely, every single martial artist who had witnessed that mysterious object had recently died under completely inexplicable circumstances. This piece of information made him pause in deep thought. According to the latest updates, a Tier 2 multi-attribute ferocious beast had been spotted at Stargazing Lake, drawing a massive crowd of Tier 3 and Tier 4 martial artists to the area. He reasoned that while he might not be able to defeat a Tier 4 martial artist in combat just yet, escaping from one shouldn't pose any threat to him. He resolved that once their relocation was fully completed the following day, he would head straight to Stargazing Lake to investigate the situation firsthand.
The chapter ends here. Watch out for our upcoming uploads. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you'll always be updated on our future videos.